Before we begin, let me explain some important Japanese cultural elements in this story. In Japan, there are special temples and shrines called ningyo dera or doll temples, where people bring old dolls to be properly disposed of through ritual burning. This practice comes from the belief that dolls, especially those that were deeply loved, can develop souls or spirits. The ritual burning, called ningyo kuyo, is a respectful way to release these spirits and prevent them from becoming restless. Japanese Shinto beliefs suggest that objects can acquire spiritual energy through human attachment and care. The shrine maidens and priests wear traditional hakama robes, and the purification rituals involve sake, mirrors, and specific prayers. Now, let's begin our story. I want to tell you about something that happened one summer day. That day I decided to visit a nearby shrine I had been planning to see for a while. I had a bit of an unusual hobby. I was fascinated by strange stories and mysterious things. On this particular day I went to a shrine that an acquaintance had told me about. According to my friend, this shrine apparently housed a massive collection of dolls. It was similar to what people call a doll temple. But this wasn't a famous shrine. It had never been featured on TV or in news programs. It was that kind of place. Even though I called it nearby, it took an hour and a half by car. The route took me through mountain roads, and I sat alone in my rattling car. My mind focused on my destination. When I arrived at the shrine, I parked my car and climbed the stairs. They were quite long stairs, and due to my lack of regular exercise, I found myself breathing heavily, wrapped in a strange sense of excitement. The longer the stairs, the more my anticipation seemed to grow. From the landscape broken by the steps, the shrine finally came into view. I passed through an impressive torii gate, and the moment I caught sight of the shrine before me, a strange ringing filled my ears. Honestly, I had never felt anything like this before. I'm not bragging, but I've never had any connection to psychic abilities. But that sensation was real, and rather than making me hesitate, it actually motivated me. What kind of motivation, I didn't know. I immediately looked around the shrine grounds. It was an impressive shrine, quite spacious with beautiful architecture, but there was definitely an abnormal scene spread out before me. Dolls, 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 dolls. The dolls housed in the shrine had overflowed their designated spaces and spread even under the floors. I felt piercing gazes, as if countless eyes were watching me. It was that overwhelming. I was about to be captivated by this surreal scene when there wasn't time for that. From the large building in front, probably the main hall, a person in hakama robes came out in a hurried manner. One person ran toward the adjacent building. Had something happened? Feeling somewhat guilty, I whispered "lucky" to myself and rushed toward the building where the hakama-clad man had entered, the one where the dolls were housed. Then two more people came bustling out of the main hall. I caught one of them and asked what was happening. "I'm busy right now, please come back later." The man said only that and disappeared back among the dolls. What on earth was going on? As I stood there with a puzzled expression, someone different from before came out of the main hall. This person wore formal attire, what you might call proper ceremonial dress. This person, who appeared to be the head priest, approached me and spoke. "Have you come to offer a doll for safekeeping?" I replied, "No, I just came to pay my respects." The priest-like person then said in an understanding way, "Then you should leave. I mean no harm by this, but today is inconvenient. Please come back another time." "Has something happened?" I asked boldly, but the priest only said, "It's better not to get involved," and returned to the main hall. In the midst of all this commotion, like a moving day, I felt completely out of place. The dolls weren't going anywhere anyway. I thought I should follow the priest's advice and come back another time. But just as I was about to leave, the same three people plus two more emerged slowly from the building. They were carrying a large box, like a coffin. This strange procession disappeared behind the main hall, and the priest came out afterward and also disappeared to the back. Before I knew it, I found myself naturally walking toward the main hall. My curiosity had overcome my fear of the warning. Having come this far, I had to see what was happening. I proceeded along the path beside the main hall. The path was overgrown with trees, dim, and covered in moss. After walking a short distance, I emerged into what looked like a clearing, an open space ahead. The priests were hurriedly constructing what looked like campfire wood arrangements in 4 directions. In the center, that box was placed on top of what appeared to be the sturdiest wooden framework. My eyes met those of the head priest. I thought I might get scolded, but he seemed to pay no particular attention and continued his work. Feeling like I had somehow received permission, I stepped out from the tree shadows into the clearing. What was about to begin? As I watched the proceedings with a mix of anticipation and anxiety, a person came into my view. It wasn't one of the priests or someone in hakama robes. It was just an ordinary old man. He was standing about 20 meters to my right, watching the priests, just as I was. I approached the old man and spoke to him. "Excuse me, is something about to happen here?" "It's a doll burning," the old man answered cheerfully. "They're going to burn and hold a memorial service for dolls." "A doll burning, I see." I had expected this, and I was right. Coming today had been the right choice. It looked like I would see something interesting. But why at this time of year? I had always thought this kind of thing was done at year-end, as a closing ceremony. But today wasn't any special day. "Do you always come to watch?" I asked the old man. "There isn't always a doll burning, you know. They don't usually do this at this time of year, and this is the first time they're burning such a large doll." After a brief pause, the old man answered, "Today is special." I decided to probe a little deeper. What makes it special? Did something happen? For the first time, the old man's expression clouded slightly at my question. Had I stepped on a landmine? I thought, but after thinking for a while, the old man began to speak. "You might not believe this story." That kind of story was exactly what I welcomed. Actually, that doll was originally stored securely in a warehouse beside the main hall. But this morning, when the priest inspected the warehouse for the first time in 3 days, that doll had disappeared. The priest and all the shrine workers searched everywhere, and they finally found it when it became light. Where do you think it was? Come on, don't keep me in suspense. I thought this but played along anyway. Where was it? Until it became light, no one noticed. And no wonder, someone had placed the doll on top of the main hall's roof. This shocked everyone at the shrine to their core. After all, the doll was a mannequin, as large as an adult man. Getting such a mannequin up onto the high main hall roof wouldn't be easy. Besides, even as a prank, it was too elaborate, and there was no reason to do such a thing up there. Anyway, since thinking about it wasn't getting them anywhere, they decided to bring the mannequin down. But while climbing a ladder to retrieve it, the man carrying the mannequin slipped and fell along with it. The man apparently broke his leg, and was immediately taken to the hospital. The man kept insisting the doll bit me, and I was bitten by the doll. This alarmed the priest, who hurriedly began preparations for the burning ritual. Which brings us to now. You know quite a lot of details. The story was hard to believe, and while I wasn't completely skeptical, I decided to be a little mischievous. I take a walk here every morning, and I watched everything from when they were bringing down the mannequin. I see. While I was listening to the old man's story, the preparations had progressed steadily, and it looked like they were about to light the fire. The head priest suddenly called out loudly. Following his lead, the men in hakama robes all began chanting what sounded like spells or sutras, while carrying fire and surrounding the box. Looking closely, I could see the box was wrapped tightly with something like wire. The first hakama-clad man lit the wooden frameworks at the 4 corners of the box. They began to smoke and crackle, then burst into flames. Following him, the second and third men continued until finally, all the wooden frameworks except the box were ablaze, creating intense pillars of fire. From about 50 to 60 meters away, I could feel the heat reaching us. Finally, the head priest lit the central framework by throwing a torch-like flame onto it. The 4 wooden frameworks contained leaves that produced white smoke, but from around the central box, black smoke billowed up ominously. Ugh! I instinctively pinched my nose. Before I knew it, a beast-like stench unlike anything I had ever smelled was filling the air. The priest's voices seemed to grow louder, and then the next moment, Yagru, incomprehensible screaming, indescribable screams, sounds I had never heard before tore through the silence of the clearing. At the same time, the box began shaking violently. It's embarrassing to admit, but honestly I almost lost my composure completely. I thought about running away, but my legs wouldn't move. I was completely frozen with fear. The box was being pounded from the inside while engulfed in flames. I even wondered if this might be elimination. It was a horrific scene. The fire roared, the box shook violently, the priests raised their voices, and the screams eventually turned into words. Let me out of here. Give it back. Give it back. It was speaking. Could it be human? No, that couldn't be possible. Besides, could a human speak under those conditions? At first I thought it was saying give it back, but later I realized I was wrong. Let me go home. Let me go home. Send me back to my wife and children. The box continued to shake violently and was still being pounded from within. You are not Michael. The head priest suddenly shouted. You are a doll. You're just a doll. Return to your proper form. With that, the priest began chanting again. No, I am Michael. Send me home. The box shook even more violently, and the lid at the end burned away, or rather exploded off. From there, a charred hand emerged and thrashed about. Then suddenly the fire weakened and became so feeble I thought it might go out completely. The priest turned around and brought over a bucket that had been sitting nearby. The bucket contained what looked like water, but I immediately realized it was sake, Japanese rice wine. I could tell because mixed with the beast-like odor, the smell of alcohol had been drifting around for a while. The priest began ladling the sake and pouring it over the box. Now wait, even if it's alcohol, that clearly looks like Japanese sake, which doesn't evaporate easily and has low flammability. Pouring sake on it would just finish it off, I thought. But contrary to my expectations, the fire blazed up remarkably. Triple, cheers you. Let me see my wife and children. Send me home. Send me home. You are not Michael, you are a doll. You must return to being yourself. With that, the priest pulled out a hand mirror from his robes and threw it into the box. Then the men in hakama began toppling the surrounding wooden frameworks toward the center. Finally, the priest lifted the bucket and poured all the remaining sake over everything. The flames blazed more fiercely than ever before, forming a massive column of fire. That was the end. After that, there were no more screams, and the box stopped shaking. I realized I was drenched in sweat. The priest continued chanting until the fire died down to smoldering embers. Part of me wanted to deny what had happened before my eyes. I was certainly different from who I had been yesterday. I had stepped just 1 foot outside of ordinary life. But that alone had changed the color of the world I could see. Afterward, the priest approached me. I didn't feel the need to be defensive and listened to what he had to say. I should purify you just to be safe. Follow me. I followed the priest into the main hall. The old man walked ahead, talking with the priest about something. They seemed to know each other well. In the main hall, we both received a simple purification ritual. After that, I was in a state of shock, completely dazed when the priest explained the detailed circumstances to me, which helped clear my head somewhat. That doll had been living as a human for a long time. According to the old one who brought that mannequin here, her daughter had treasured it dearly. The daughter and grandchild died in an accident, but only that mannequin was unharmed. The old woman said it was a keepsake, but it disturbed her, so she had no choice but to bring it here. Since they even had it in the car when the accident happened, it must have been incredibly precious to them. When humans become too emotionally attached, they gradually start to believe that the doll is alive. The words that followed still haven't left my mind. It's the same for dolls. When they're loved too much, they start to mistake themselves for human beings. Because, you see, they are alive too. The cicadas began to sing, as if reclaiming forgotten time. It was an event from one summer day,